All right, I think we'll get started. My folks on Zoom Wi-Fi is being tricky with me this morning, so if you pop out, don't worry. I will be recording this and I will be uploading it as well. So today we're going to talk about resumes. Thank you all for printing them out. It is just easier to have them in person rather than doing it and swapping laptops and things like that, because we are going to do some peer reviewing. So with that, let's get started. All right, so we talked last week about understanding self. And for the next two classes, we'll be talking about the next step, which is developing your tools. So you most likely have a resume from high school, which is okay. But the intention of this class is to take your resume to the next level, which is the college level. This is because it is going to be a little bit more competitive now to get jobs and internships. And it's a constant process. You'll hear me say that a few times. In career development, we're always improving our resumes. So you'll probably do it across all 4 years. So if you have your resume physically, and I know some folks are still coming in, I'd like you to try to swap with a partner and then just put them face down for now. Is anyone doing it without a physical copy? All right, so keep it face down if you've swapped with a partner. And I don't know if everyone heard me. Is anyone doing it on your laptop or phone? Or if you have it on your laptop and you just want to email it to someone in the class, that's fine too. No, that's okay. It happens. Okay, when I say go, I'd like you to flip it over and I want you to find the 3 things that are listed on this next slide. So you're looking for major, job title of the first job, and 3 skills, and go. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Okay, I want you to stop and flip them back over. All right. Did anyone find the major? Awesome. Job title? Anyone find all 3 skills? No? A few people did. So how fast did that feel? Was it fast, slow? Kind of? Okay, so that's about how long an employer or myself will spend looking at a resume, maybe even less. We give you a little more time. So the point of that activity is just that we want you to realize if your resume or someone else's, if it's easy or hard to find those things, because those are kind of the key things that they are looking for. We want to make sure that the resume is easily readable and that you're able to find all the information you need in a matter of seconds. So employers usually spend 3 to 6 seconds deciding whether or not they want to continue to look at this resume. So that's why it's so important to have a well-formatted resume. We're going to keep doing things with the resume as well, but you can swap back and have your own again. So employers are typically looking for educational information, work history, or a particular skill set. We're going to slowly go through each section of the resume. I understand that a lot of this will be a repeat for some of you, but we're just going to go through to give you an idea of what breaks down a good resume and why. One of the benefits of working with us early and often, and by us I mean the Career Center, is we are in fact experts on the resume, on resume writing and formatting. There are some things that are absolutes that everyone should have in their resume and should be going by, and then the rest is really preference. So let's start. So this first section is contact info. Under the contact info, we usually list our address, but personally, I've been seeing that kind of phased out. So the full address is no longer necessary because we used to mail out our applications, but everything's through, websites and online now when you apply, so you don't really need to do that. Some folks still like to list the full address. That's totally up to you. But I do think it's important to list at least the city, state, and zip code because geographically, employers will take a look at where you are and make sure, unless it's a remote job, that you can actually commit to that work. And some employers, unfortunately, won't take you seriously if you have an address from New York, but you're applying to the Fenway area. So just be aware of that. And if you're living in a dorm, you might want to update your address to the Boston address versus like if you go home to a summer job, then switch it back. Does that all make sense? Any questions so far? Awesome. So the next part is phone number. I usually see this on here. There's usually everyone does email, phone number, and address. But if you don't have it on there, put it on. How many of you don't answer the phone if you don't know the number? Good. I would definitely advise that. You don't want to like be caught off guard and answer the phone and maybe you're unprofessional or maybe you're in a loud setting or you can't talk to that person and it might be an employer. So if you are applying to internships or jobs, just be aware of that. How many of you will check your voicemails? Okay. How many of you recently cleaned out your voicemail box? Awesome. I see a couple hands. Yay. Definitely check that. That is like the biggest mistake that I see really everyone make, not just students, but professionals too. My brother and my dad, I'm always yelling at them, clean out your inbox. If they can't leave a voicemail message or if you have an unprofessional setting, I actually just heard on the radio this morning a story of a girl who I don't know what the actual voicemail was, but it was in a party setting. It was really loud and unprofessional. She had applied to a job and I think the employer was calling to offer it to her, but they said, no reason to call us back. We're all set now. So just be aware of that. Set up your voicemail box. And then use whatever phone number is, just like your email, whatever is the one that you check the most often. And then email. So same thing with email, you can use your student email, you can use a Gmail, whatever you use most often. I often get questions about that and I might see both on there. I would choose one or the other. I think it's more relevant to have your student one listed on there right now. When you do go out or if you do have a personal one that you're always checking, that's fine. But yeah, you want to have whatever you check the most. One thing to think about with the email, you want to have a professional name if it is a Gmail account or a different email account besides your student one. So that even could include your birth year. So you don't really want to disclose that information about your age or any personal information. So think about changing or updating your email if it does have any personal info. And then just other things, additional things to think about for the contact info section. For some of you, as you go along throughout your college career, you can think about adding LinkedIn. If it's already looking good and you're feeling proud about it, put it up there. I usually say, put it up there and then hyperlink it so they can just click right on it. Same with websites, blogs, portfolios. So graphic designers, my writers, you guys should have them or start thinking about that. That's something that you'll want to add and showcase your work. I'll pause there. Any questions on this section? Okay. All right. So, all right, education section. So education usually does come after the contact info area, but sometimes we do see it at the bottom of the resume too. We'll talk a little bit about that in a couple moments, but usually the formatting is you would write your school, so Emmanuel College, the city and state, Boston, Mass, and then underneath would go to the degree program. The degree program I often see mistakes on, so here you have the Bachelor of Arts degree, Bachelor of Science, or Bachelor of Fine Arts. So you want to figure out which one you are. You can easily go on student planning and see that, but if you're unsure, definitely check out, they have it online as well. But that's something definitely as a college student, I was not aware of. And I think a lot of people aren't aware of it. So getting that correct title and spelling out Bachelor of whatever it is, arts, and then in whatever major you have or the major underneath it. And then you can add minors here as well. This person doesn't have one, that's fine. Your anticipated graduation, this is anticipated, we call it, because it could change. You could take a summer class, you could stay longer depending on your program or your degree or what you're doing. So it could always be pushed, and that's why we say anticipated. However, you do want to remove that once you graduate. We do see sometimes people leave it on there when you've already graduated, and it's no longer anticipated or expected. And then your GPA, our rule of thumb in the Career Center is usually above 3.5 is, noteworthy. It's not that anything under that is bad. It's just, employers don't really care too much. And also, I think after your first entry-level position and even applying to some of those, GPA isn't a huge deal. Some places, depending on what you're doing, will look at your transcript, but others won't pay attention to any of that. So just something to think about. Any questions on the education section? Additional things here, you could put relevant courses. I usually say keep it between 4 to 6, and those should not be introductory courses. They should be courses that interest you, that are relevant to what you're going to do. And you could also do awards and recognition in this section, Dean's List. That is every semester though, so you do want to put the dates for that or the semesters. And then scholarships, things like that. Okay. So the resume should always be clean and easy to follow. You can definitely change the format, but it really should be easy to read. And consistency is key. That's what I always say when it comes to formatting a resume. It's really down to the detail. And I'll joke when I'm one-on-one with my students and say, like, it really is like so crazy the amount of attention to detail you need. And it's like little edits here and there, but it really does make a difference. Sometimes I'll see students like copy and pasting the job description, and I can totally tell. And if I can tell, the employers can probably tell. And I understand it's hard to like come up with those bullets, but we will walk you through that. We'll talk about that a little bit. But you never want to be inconsistent. So font should be the same size, except with the exception of your name. Your name should be big and stand out. And then it should be usually single spaced, one page. So the formatting is something that we do look for and employers look for and they want to get that information fast. So that's why we have the templates that we do. And you should have seen, or you will see on the homework, that some of the different templates we have. So there are some ones that are more geared towards nursing. There's a general one, and then there's a bio one. So just some things to think about. One more thing I want to note about this section, and just with the consistency throughout. So you'll see that the company names are bolded and the titles are italicized. So that's just to make it stand out in a little bit of a different way, but that the employer is still able to see your title and what you did. I've seen it swapped, and that's totally fine. That's preference. It's just that it should be clean, easy to read, and that's the whole point of it. And then the bullet points as well. Some templates, there's one common template that I'll see that's usually in paragraphs when it comes to a section like this, the work experience, and no one is going to sit there and read that. And it's really hard to get through, even if you did. So using bullets kind of breaks that up, and it makes it easier to read. Any questions on this section? All right. So these are some additional sections. Depending on your experience, your background, the rest of your resume is really determined by that. So these are just some ideas for other sections you can add. So volunteer service, I usually see, athletics. So this would all be at the college level. And actually I should mention, so right now I know a lot of you are first years, you really should be starting to take that high school stuff off your resume. If you really have nothing else, it's fine to keep for now, but by next year it should be gone. So you really want to get involved. You want to think about what you do in your courses. If you haven't had a job yet, think about getting a part-time job. Basically doing something to start building that resume. And it doesn't have to be super relevant to what you're gonna do. That's great if it is, but it's okay if you're working at a grocery store. It shows that you're a well-rounded student. And then campus leadership or campus involvement, clubs and orgs. That's RA, OL positions. If you're a general member of a club, if you're on the executive board, think about adding those. And I usually put all the dates in here as well. Actually, I'm gonna go back because I did talk about that. You'll see the dates are aligned on the right-hand side here. Sometimes I'll see it underneath the title and the company. Again, it's just like a lot of text over there. So moving it over to the side, if you can, breaks it up, and then aligning it with the rest of your dates. So like the education section with the expected or anticipated graduation date, it just makes it all look really nice. Okay, honors and awards we talked about. Any conferences or professional development you've done or will do, research, publications, my history and English majors, language skills, and then a skills section. So that skills section, I commonly see soft skills in there, customer service, time management. I want to see hard skills. I want to see the technical and the language skills there. If you're having trouble coming up with those, let me know. But usually it's like starting with like Microsoft Office applications. Everyone should know how to use that. Google Docs, things like that. If you're in communications, really heavy on the social media side or the graphic design. So Adobe Suite or Photoshop or InDesign, things like that. So just thinking about softwares you use, even if it's at a job right now, that could be useful. Questions on additional sections? Yes.
Like stuff in high school, are you just talking about like this stuff or jobs?
Yeah, so I think jobs are okay. It's more like extracurriculars, but really sometimes under education too, I'll see high school still under there, or like transfer, maybe you transferred here from another school. Unless you got a degree from there, it shouldn't be on there. And then high school is just like, it's starting to get outdated, and we do want to make it the college level resume now. So I would say if you can throughout, start replacing those with college level jobs and experience. But if it's the only job that you have, that's okay for now. Yes.
For
you put like our high school graduation as well? Like,
No, not necessary. No, good question. Anything else? Great questions. Okay. All right. Let's see. We're good on time. I'm gonna go through all of these. I know it's a lot, but I really do, want to help you guys. And I think these are all worth mentioning. So employers are expecting your best work. If there are errors, that tells employers that there might be errors in your work, or you might lack the attention to detail, which is a skill that they look for. So feel free to edit your own resume as we're going through, if you haven't been already. And this is in no way to make you feel badly. We're just here to really better your career development and your resume. I'm constantly updating mine, and I'm always catching errors. I'm always showing it to multiple people. So it's totally normal. And resumes are meant to be forever changing. So having a solid format makes it easy when it does come time to edit. So that's why we kind of say, try to stay away from templates that you find online. Those tables, it makes it really hard to edit. And then also, like, you do want to have it in a PDF when you are applying to places. But if you're having someone edit it, try to send it in like a Word or Google Doc. All right. And then I did mention in my other class, and I want to mention it here too. I do encourage students to have like a master list, really anyone, any professional. So what I mean by that is keeping track of everything you've ever done. So even though you're taking off some of this high school stuff, this experience, you do want to keep track of what you've done. If you've ever babysat or nannied before, I used to do that in my past. I could not tell you the ages that I, started at watching the children. Some of the names I forget. Like, so you want to write this information down. The dates are all jumbled now looking back. So keeping this info somewhere to, go back to or have that experience, and just, it's kind of like just nice to see, like, oh yeah, I worked there. I did that. So keeping a master list of everything you've done is kind of nice, and separate it from your resume. And then you can kind of pull from it and go back to it as you gain more experience. Okay, so the first thing that's actually not on here that I want to mention, actually a couple things. I don't want to see color on the resume unless you are a graphic designer, or you're in art, or you're going into a field where it's more on the creative side. I would say if you really, really want to keep it, fine, but it really should be neutral colors. It should be simple. I saw a beautiful resume the other day that was purple, and I loved it, but employers do not love that. And they were not a graphic designer or arts major. So you do want to keep it professional and simple, with font, with color. You also want to make sure everything's in chronological order. So you want to have whatever's the most recent volunteer experience or work experience listed first, and then moving down would be the oldest one. Font size, usually I would not go below 10.5, maybe 10's okay, but it starts to get a little hard to read at that point. And then I would go up to 12, but I wouldn't go over that either because it's a little too big. Sometimes I'll see like section headings really large. Everything really should be the same size except your name. All right, that's my note on that. So other common mistakes, bullets aren't lined up, or they might be inconsistent in size. So you might see one that's like very, very small, and then the rest are all normal. So just paying attention to things like that. Either less than a page or more than a page. It really should just be fitting on one page. And there's ways to work around if there's like a lot of white space and you don't have too much experience yet, we can work with that. If you have like 2 or 3 pages, that's too long right now. Rule of thumb, for at least is what I say, by college degree. So bachelor's, or you're working towards bachelor's, 1 page, master's, you can add another, and then PhD, I joke that you can do however many you want, but the same thing applies. Employers are only going to take a couple of seconds to look at everything. So You do want to fit it all into a page. And there are tips and tricks for that if you're really struggling. I work with the margins, I work with the font size. We see if everything's single space. Any questions on that? Okay. Extra space between sections. So I always see some like random extra lines, or students will say, I don't know why my page is going on to the second page. What's happening? And there's all these random spaces in between sections, or the opposite, they're too close together and it's way too hard to read. So if you do have this space those out. All of your experience does not need to be smushed together. Dates dropping to the next line. So sometimes if you're uploading things, just be aware of that. Double check before you apply to anything, that everything's falling into place. I know it's annoying, but sometimes I do see the dates just like dropping on the second line where the title of your job is, and it just looks bad. It looks like you didn't check it before you submitted it. You don't need to put identifiers, like you don't need to say phone before you put your phone number, or email before you put that. Sometimes that comes with templates, but you just don't need to say that. You might be missing some contact info, so make sure you have all that. And that goes for the cover letter too. So you definitely want your email and phone number in there. They are separate documents and you just never know. One thing that I usually do is, like, a student submits a resume to me through email and I'm editing it and I send it back. I usually update when I save it, I put your full name and then I'll do like _ CL for cover letter, or I'll write out resume. And that's because that too, like if employers are downloading things or if it's going through a system and you did forget any contact info, that's just gonna save you. Objective statements and summaries, personal statements, all of these are unnecessary. They're a little outdated. I see them on templates all the time, and I do see some students still use them. I think this is preference. So, you know, I think it's outdated. I don't think it's necessary. However, I do say for someone like a nursing student who is going into a particular job title, and there's so many realms of working in a hospital or nursing, then you could write a sentence or two on exactly what you want to do, but it has to be clear. It has to state exactly what the goal is. And so that's the only real thing I would say is if you're going to leave that. Personal info, we talked a little bit about that, but there should be no pictures on resumes. Sometimes I do see that. Your age, your gender, social security, yes. Yes, yeah. So the question was, especially for Zoom folks, if you couldn't hear, can you have like a logo if you're a graphic design, and rather than like a picture of yourself? So we don't want any pictures of yourself, but yes, logo or like creative, I would definitely encourage that. Some people will work with like initials to be their logo, and that's usually like their company name. That's totally fine. Great idea. No interest section. I do see interest quite a lot in like really cool hobbies. I love learning about it, but not something you want to put on the resume. And employers, you know, they'll get to know you through an interview or through the cover letter. Your passion will shine through. You don't need to really talk about anything else. And if you end up working with them, again, they'll get to know you as a person, and then those hobbies will probably come up, but not necessary to have interest on the resume. References available upon request as well. I often see that at the bottom or in the resume, sometimes even the cover letter. Again, this is a totally separate document. You don't need to, you know, let them know that you'll do that. They often will ask in the application for you to upload references, or through the interview process. Once it's like getting into the final stages, you have references. That'll be a separate sheet. And usually I say like copy your contact info from your resume, put it on a new sheet or a new document, and then you'll, the reference page is usually just like the person's name. Usually it's 3 references. They should know that they're references, and then their contact information, their title, and then same kind of format. Like I will usually do bold be their name and then italicize their title. And then I just have their email and phone number on there. So really simple format. but it's totally different page. Pronouns in bullet points. So trying to stay away from I, me, she, him, us, them. Like you don't want to be in first person for bullet points. You want to be in past or present tense, and you're starting those job duties with action verbs and really strong beginnings. And again, we'll go over this. All right. Thank you guys for listening patiently. We had talked about the unprofessional email address, street address. You don't need number of hours or salary info of past jobs. I don't really see this too often, but just something to note. And then obviously grammatical errors or spelling errors you really want to check for. Repeating words often in the job duty bullets, and even on some assignments for resume, I've seen like responsible for, just using the same thing over and over in the first part of the bullet. Try to choose some different words, and there's a document in that in our assignment for some ideas to give you to inspire you to come up with those. Lastly, typos and spelling errors, especially in the heading titles. So like volunteer experience, the word experience is sometimes difficult to spell, get the I and the E mixed up. Just pay attention to those, look for those spelling errors throughout the resume in Word or Google Docs or wherever you're doing it. And that's it for common mistakes. Let's see, any questions on that? All right, I know that's a lot of info. Thanks for bearing with me. So we talked a little bit about absolutes. There are some things that are absolute, and then some other things are preference. So you'll get a lot of different opinions on what you should do, what should be on your resume, how you should format it. In the last class, I actually had a student say, oh, my resume is the best. My dad helped me with it. He sees resumes all the time. It was not the best, but that's okay. It was in good shape. However, this is totally what I hear. So parents will try to help you out, and professors will, and even another person in the Career Center. We all will tell you something different. So you need to take what makes the most sense to you, and then think about what is absolute and what should be on there, and what needs to be done, and then what can be preference. So hopefully that I clear that up today. And just this is your resume, so you get to decide what goes on it at the end of the day. You don't even have to take my advice. This is just for my own, expertise. So we talked a little bit about the education section. When I worked with my gaming students at Becker College, there's one professor and myself who we just like always said the opposite thing. His students would come in and said, well, Professor such and such said my education should be at the bottom. And I was like, that's fine. Does he have a reason for that? Like, did he explain to you why he wants it at the bottom? Nope. So I usually try to say why I make the edit. He doesn't have to be wrong, but if he doesn't have a reason, it's like, which one are you going to go with? So my reason for having it at the top is it's relevant right now. You're in college. It makes the most sense. And for that particular program, that school was the top 2 design school in the US. So you would want to showcase that and say I'm in the best game program. So having it at the bottom was kind of like, didn't make sense to me. But again, that was that professor's preference, and he had been in the industry, so he must have had a reason for it. So deciding what makes sense. You guys are still in college, you're about to graduate, you want to showcase what you're studying. For me, I usually say once you start to get into the career industry and you've been in there for a few years, then you can start slowly moving it to the bottom, because it's not as relevant, but it still shows what you studied and all that. So we'll go over these absolutes. All right, so this is our little acronym, SAINT, of course. And so here are the absolutes. So skimmable, we've talked about this. The resume should be formatted in such a way that it's easy to skim for the important info. And a recruiter or an employer will spend as little as 3 to 6 seconds checking that. Explaining how important it is that your resume is truthful. So the accurate part. Many students are not intending to be dishonest on a resume, but it does happen accidentally. So for example, I talked about if you transferred from another school and you had your school listed, sometimes that gives the impression that you got 2 degrees. So making it clear that you didn't graduate from there, you can always list the courses you took there, but it should not be listed and giving that off. And then GPA as well. Sometimes students won't check and update after every semester that GPA, and they don't mean to be dishonest, but it could come off that way. So just being careful of that. Independent ownership. Ultimately, the student or the job candidate makes the final decision on the resume. So if you get back feedback from someone that you don't agree with, you can feel free to make your own choice, which we talked about. And no errors. So just being free from errors, paying attention to detail, and then targeted. So the most relevant experience should be listed first. And many students believe that job duty bullets should be listed by frequency of activity rather than relevancy. So this is just like if you have, maybe you have an internship in graphic design and your other jobs were not as relevant. You can make different sections for that, and you can say like relevant information or graphic design experience, and then put your work experience after that. And then same with the dates as well. You want to make sure that they are most recent to least. All right, so bullet points. I think this is the hardest part of the resume, besides all the formatting, breaking down these job duty bullets. So it's critical that you can demonstrate the skills that you possess through the written description of past work experiences. So that's what hiring managers are looking for. So this formula should help you write the bullets that highlight these skills. So in this example, the skill is customer service. How you have it, you work in a fast-paced restaurant, and the proof, you can manage 50 tables. So instead of just saying, I waited on tables and I took orders, which is often what I see, just like really short bullets that aren't really explaining exactly what you did way more there. So getting into the details, using numbers, and using a strong action verb, developed positive customer service skills in a fast-paced 50-table restaurant. And then this other one, so taught students rules of residence hall, independently presented topics on manual policies and procedures to groups of 15 plus. That is a lot more descriptive than the first one. So the skill is that you're an independent worker. How you have it, the experience is through creating presentations, and that proof is presenting to groups of 15 plus students. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to give you a couple minutes. I want you to choose one job duty bullet that you have on your resume. If you don't have one, then I'm using this time to create one using this formula. And I want you to just take it and improve it doing this. So raise your hand if you need help. I'll walk around, but choose one to just work on for a couple seconds. And if anyone has questions, just grab me. Hoping you get a head start on your homework. Yeah. How are we doing? There you go. Okay. Anyone else need info?
Yes.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. We did that. Exactly. It's, so I'm actually gonna talk about it short. All right, we're gonna bring it back. This is something that you will work on for homework too. And at the end of the 5 weeks, you're also gonna meet with a professional to go over your resume one-on-one and get that like final feedback. So you'll leave here with a polished resume. But I had a few good points come up. So one thing I didn't mention was the length of a bullet. So obviously, I always say quality is better than quantity. However, in the case of the resume, sometimes like bullets can be too short. And I would say anything that doesn't reach the halfway through the page or the midpoint, anything under that is a little too short. So think about what you can do to add to that. Sometimes it just is what it is and you can't. That's okay. You can always combine bullets too, and that saves space as well. All right. Okay. Any questions on that? I know somebody had some great questions. All right. Awesome. Thank you guys. Hopefully that helped. I do want to talk a little bit about the difference between a resume and a CV. Students often will ask or might not know the difference between a resume or a CV, but there is a small difference. So the format that you use is dependent on your experience. So for CVs, if you have a lot of research or publications, conferences, teaching, etc., that might warrant a CV. But if you aren't sure or you don't have those things, then you probably will just have a resume, which is fine. A CV is just a lot longer. It lists all those publications and things like that. And if you aren't sure, come see us. We can work with you to figure out what the best format is. Okay, just really quick on the cover letter. This slide demonstrates the importance of using keywords from the job posting within the cover letter. So this actually helps recruiters see the connection between your past experience and what they're looking for in the current role. And it will also help applications move past an applicant tracking system if a keyword search is used. So basically, bigger companies will use application tracking systems. I think Emmanuel uses it too. And they will pick up on keywords that you're using to see if you are a good match. And that will kind of send you through the system and say, okay, like it's now up to you if you want to interview this person. So using and pulling from those job descriptions for the cover letter is really, really helpful. And then same with the resume as well. So I usually say, pull up the job description, either have it open or have it printed out and go through and kind of like just check off. So if they're asking for teamwork or collaborations with other offices, think about a time where you worked on a team. Maybe it was in class, maybe it was in sports, and you want to write one sentence on that. You don't have to include every single skill that they're asking for, but it will help you to kind of start crafting that cover letter. It doesn't have to be identical language to the job posting, but it should be relevant or similar. And the cover letter doesn't need to be written until you know where you're applying to. It's just kind of hard unless you do know. So sometimes a lot of students come to me and they'll want to get a kickstart on the cover letter, and we can go through what, the breakdown of the cover letter, but really until you actually have a internship or job to apply to, then it does make it kind of hard because we want to make it relevant to that position. All right. So thank you all. I know that's a lot of information. My slide doesn't want to click. I was basically just going to talk to you about the next assignment. So for the homework due before our next class, use what you learned today to create a new draft of your resume. And then you'll see there's a color code of red, green, or yellow. And you can read the definitions for each, but based off that and how you formatted the resume and what you took from this class is how you'll get your grade. So you'll be given one of those colors and then, complete it or not. And then, like I said, you'll get a final resume review at the end of the 5 weeks. If you didn't check in for attendance with Vanessa, I know people were in and out printing, make sure you do that. And then I'm gonna try to see if this quiz will work. We have some more pad folios to give out, so bear with me.